Indian channel.
And you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media. Y Media has newspaper, midweek, radio, South Asian Pulse.
Hi, I'm Amitabh Bachchan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
Hi, this is Amir Khan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
अब हर दिन सुने GTA का #1 रेडियो स्टेशन FM 91.9
Television. You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y.
Prime Minister, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Online, SouthAsianDaily.com. The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media.
This part of the program is brought to you by Midweek Newspaper, published every Tuesday.
Hello everyone, my name is Yudhvir Jaswal. On behalf of Y Media Group, I'd like to welcome you on Channel Y today. We all know that the federal Conservative leadership is heating up. The federal Conservatives will be electing a new leader on 10th of September. This new leader would be challenging the current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and one of the very strong candidates is Mayor Patrick Brown. Mayor Patrick Brown, on behalf of Y Media Group, we'd like to welcome you on Channel Y. How are you?
Well, Yudhvir, it's always great to be with you on Channel Y. I've been coming here for years, and it's great to be back on the air with you.
Thank you so much. And we heard the news. The Liberals have done a deal, supply and confidence with the NDP. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's very alarming for Canadians. It diminishes our democracy. You know, Canadians did not elect a majority Liberal government. They elected a minority parliament, and I really believe in trusting the judgment of Canadians. We have a democratic process, an election that is hard fought, and Canadians in their wisdom said Justin Trudeau didn't deserve a majority. And now we have, through a backroom deal, where the NDP are propping up the Liberals into a majority position, it's a slap in the face to Canadian voters who chose otherwise. And on top of that, the economic consequences are significant. You know, right now there is no financial plan for the country. We are in a period of financial instability with deficit and debt out of control. We're in an affordability crisis where people can barely afford gas, groceries. Affordability of housing prices in suburban Canada is out of reach. And now we have a coalition that's going to maintain the status quo of financial chaos for the years to come. And so it's alarming. You know, I have to say I object to this backroom deal, and I really feel that Canadians deserve better.
Okay. And what's your plan, as much as you said a lot about the current situation, if you get elected as the Conservative leader and eventually if you become the Prime Minister, what would be your plan?
Well, fundamentally, you know, I will work towards a low-tax economy where we protect jobs in every sector, where we deal with the affordability crisis that is facing Canadians. You know, on a big level, you know, I want to see a government that gets out of the way of small businesses, so when they work hard, they can succeed. A government that gets out of your personal life too. Who you love, what you want to wear, none of our business. I want to see less government. You know, sometimes you see Liberals view government as the answer to every problem. And I think those in the real world, outside the bubble of Ottawa, know that quite often if you assign a task to government, they find a way to break it, to be less efficient. And so I'm a big believer that we need to create an environment in which businesses can grow again, invest again, hire again. I want to create an economy that is the envy of the world, where, you know, we become a job-creating engine again.
After your interview, last interview, I did interview Pierre Poilievre, and he really attacked you. He says you're lying. He said the Conservatives were never in a position to do a niqab ban. They were just talking about uncovering the face at the citizenship ceremony, and he also questioned your integrity as well. That's what Pierre Poilievre said. Well,
you know, Pierre is in his own reality. You know, he said the barbaric tip line announcement, the niqab ban, never happened. That same day that he made that statement, the NCCM, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, called Pierre out for lying, for being, for misleading, for not speaking the truth. You covered the 2015 election, Yudhvir. You know that announcement that his campaign manager, Jenny Byrne, did on the barbaric tip lines, you know, created a level of distrust with the Conservative Party and Canadians. Pierre and Jenny were wrong on this. It damaged trust. And frankly, you know, if Pierre and Jenny were going after Muslim Canadians at first, who are they going to go after next? And that's how I feel a lot of communities felt. Canadians should not be targeted. There's no second-class citizenship in this country. And when the National Council of Canadian Muslims put out a press release saying that Pierre is wrong, if he'd at least apologize and say he made mistakes, even his own campaign chair, Tumapel, apologized for what happened with these incidents. One of his key supporters, Melissa Lanceman, apologized. We shared on social media his supporters saying that he was wrong. And so, I don't think Pierre should play fast and loose with the truth. I think Canadians would have more respect for him if he acknowledged the mistakes that he made with those divisive tactics.
What would you say to your critics who are saying this, that, once again, you are stoking up these identity issues? There, as you just mentioned, there are many other important issues which I think the Canadians want to be addressed.
Well, exactly, and that's why Pierre and Jenny should not have been targeting Muslim Canadians. Now, I believe in equality of Canadians. I want to make sure that every Canadian has equal opportunity. What I have no time for is the politics of division and hate, and it's one of the reasons that I've been so vocal on Bill 21. Right now, the bill that Pierre supports in Quebec and says he won't get involved in, Bill 21 says that if you wear a turban, a hijab, a kippah, a cross, you can't be a government worker, a firefighter, a police officer, a judge, a crown attorney, a teacher. It's fundamentally wrong. Religious freedom is a foundational value in our country. And the notion that we could allow it to be diminished in one province is fundamentally wrong. And we need a prime minister who will stand up for the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and say very clearly, we don't believe in second-class citizenship. We don't have second-class citizenship in Canada. We won't permit that. And I know, the Pierres of the world say it's popular in Quebec, we can't interfere. There was a time in Canadian politics when the internment of Japanese Canadians was popular. It was wrong, though. You look at the treatment of Indigenous Canadians in residential schools. There was a time in Canadian politics where that was popular. It doesn't matter if it's popular, it was wrong. Leaders don't do what's popular, leaders do what is right. And this cowardly approach in Ottawa is wrong. And it's one of the reasons that I'm running federally, because I will never allow Canadians to be treated as second class in their own country. A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, and I won't allow religious freedom to be diminished in our country.
Talking of populism, I've heard few concerns in the community. They say that whether it was the farmers' issue, they wanted to debate with you, and they said you took a populist stand at that time. And maybe they're also questioning you that are you trying to please or pitch one community against the other?
Our city council has been clear. We stand with our community, and when there is issues that cause pain in Brampton, we stand with them. In the case of the farmers' protest, our council unanimously, this was not a divisive issue, our council unanimously passed a motion that was put forth by councillors Dillon and Singh, and they talked about loved ones in India who were struggling with how protesters were being treated. And I understand the Indian government has walked back those reforms, and so the protest in that sense was successful. But Brampton was one of the first cities in Canada, and hundreds others joined, but we were one of the first cities that said we stand with the farmers' protest. And one of the reasons that Brampton felt an affinity to this issue, and one of the reasons that all our MPs and all our MPPs and all our councillors supported the farmers' protest was because there are so many people-to-people connections between Brampton and India, and we had literally loved ones telling us their stories, and we had emails and letters coming in and phone calls saying, please show your support. And we saw this a protest, the largest protest in the world. And so we have two local councillors who are very involved in the issue, Councillor Singh and Councillor Dillon, and good for them that they felt comfortable coming and bringing the concerns of the community to the council floor, and I think it speaks volumes that our council unanimously supported them.
How would you take your relationship with India any further? I think the Trudeau government, they've been trying to do the free trade agreement. Recently, I just interviewed Mary Angie before she left for India, and now they're trying really hard. She met Piyush Goyal, the Minister for Trade and Industries there. How would you strengthen your ties with India?
Well, I certainly think it's in Canada's best interest to have strong economic relations with India. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And if I can give you an example of how we've conducted ourselves locally, we've set up Beehive, which is a tech hub in Brampton that Vikram Khurana, well known in the community, is helping us build, where we offer startup visas for companies that are coming into Canada. And this is based on what we saw with T-Hub in Hyderabad, a tech ecosystem. And so we are actively looking at pathways in which we can encourage economic investment from India into Canada and vice versa. And so as Prime Minister, I would view having prosperous economic relations and trade relations with India as important and beneficial to Canada.
What about China? We've had some tough times with China recently.
Well, countries will have legitimate political debate, and obviously there was some an issue of mistreatment of two Canadians, and I think it's important that Canada stands up for human rights, and that applies to any country in the world, any relationship. Countries always want to have strong diplomatic relations. At the same time, it's important to be able to raise the concerns of your residents, and where there are grievances that aren't addressed, it's the job of the Prime Minister to strenuously advocate for them.
If you get elected as the leader of the Conservative Party, Brampton could have 4 mayors in as many terms, So who's taking care of Brampton? We're going to have almost 4 mayors in 4 terms.
Well, I think this has been a very productive 4 years for the residents of Brampton. As I like to say, promises made, promises kept. I promised that we were going to freeze municipal property taxes. For the first time in 19 years, Brampton has frozen municipal taxes every year. We've balanced the budget every year. We've made record contributions to our reserves. And a central plank of my campaign was to make sure Brampton gets its fair share. And we've got a new hospital coming to Brampton, $1 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion new hospital coming on the grounds of the Old Peel Memorial. We've got a med school coming to our city now. We've hit some home runs in this term of council, and so I'm proud of the record of this council. It was an ambitious agenda, but we have kept our promises. We have delivered for residents, and I'll just say this: wherever I'm serving, if I'm serving on a federal level or a local level, Brampton is in my heart, and I will be here to serve the best interest of our city. I live in Brampton. My family loves Brampton. I'm always going to be attached to the city of Brampton and always here to serve the residents of Brampton.
You're almost about to become the premier of this province, and suddenly you were attacked at that time in 2018. And I still remember doing interviews at that time with you, and you also published a book about your political assassination at that time. Now we hear that yes, a deal has been done. Don't you think that we need to bring those people to justice who try to tarnish your career?
Well, I believe everything happens for a reason, and good people succeed in the end. And I'm just very grateful that I get to look forward to the future in a positive fashion with that behind me. And certainly my book speaks to what I went through, and that was a best-selling book. So I became an author through the process, but now I'm focused on doing what I can to serve Canada.
Okay, and I think Conservatives need a leader. I think 3 points I want to discuss one by one with you. Number one, they want somebody who can beat Justin Trudeau, because they haven't won an election in almost a decade. 2011 was the last time they won an election. Why would they look upon you, who's ready to beat Justin Trudeau?
Well, clearly I'm the only candidate in this race who's shown an ability to win in the GTA. I have a track record of winning in the GTA. I have a track record of fighting for the GTA. I have a track record of success in suburban Canada. Not only was I elected in Brampton, I won provincial by-elections. I won provincial by-elections in areas that the party had never won before. I look at Scarborough Rouge River, and so I know how to win, and I would be the worst possible adversary for the Liberal Party, because I would take them apart in their fortress. I would call them out and hold them accountable for taking this part of the country for granted. And frankly, that's what they've done. They've taken many of their constituents who have elected them by a large volume. They've taken them for granted.
You have some sort of arrangement or a deal with Jean Charest, because you haven't been attacking him. He said he has high respect for you, but when I interview other candidates, even Pierre Poilievre, he attacks you, you attack him. But any sort of deal?
So I don't have any, there's no formal arrangement, no deals per se. I know a number of the candidates in the race. I look at Scott Aitchison up in Parry Sound, a good man, deeply committed to positive public service. I look at Jean Charest. I believe the country has a debt owed to him for the incredible and inspirational work he did in 1995, keeping the country together. There's a number of talented candidates in this race. I just disagree with the policies of Pierre Poilievre. I believe in a more inclusive, big tent Conservative Party.
What are the 3 points, if you want to mention here, that these are the 3 major points where you differentiate and you disagree with Pierre Poilievre?
Well, a big one is Bill 21 on religious freedom. Pierre has run away from religious freedom. We see that on Bill 21. We see that on the snitch line that him and his campaign manager wanted to set up on fellow Canadians. So Bill 21 is a fundamental disagreement. I'd also say another disagreement is their approach to suburban Canada, where Pierre has shown disinterest in building bridges and relationships in suburban Canada. I clearly have devoted a lot of my public service to building bridges and bringing Canadians together in suburban Canada. I'd also say, some of his comments on Indigenous Canadians, there's a stark difference. He made very derogatory comments about Indigenous Canadians during the residential school apology. I believe that was a sad chapter in Canadian history, and I certainly don't agree with the approach he takes. I believe we need to reconcile past mistakes. I believe we need to create better conditions for Indigenous Canadians. The fact that we still have boil water advisories highlights the work that we still have to do. And so those are a few, but there are a number of other policy differences that I have with Pierre and his campaign manager, Jenny.
Okay. Now let's talk about infrastructure now. This has been one of my major concerns, that there was a time that we call ourselves as the developed nations. Now here we see China, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, India. They're developing at a much faster pace, but we haven't seen much of an infrastructure being developed here in Canada.
That's one of my points, is right now Justin Trudeau is spending more than at any point in Canadian history, spending like a drunken sailor. And yet, what do we have to show for it? We have record debt, record deficit. What do we have to show for it? Where is if you spend on infrastructure, there's some legacy of what you're spending on. And yet we can't get any of these infrastructure projects out the door. We've been begging for federal support for our LRT extension, and it's nowhere to be seen. We want help with our rapid bus transit, nowhere to be seen. I want to see a government of Canada that invests in infrastructure in a significant way to make life easier for Canadians, so we can get to work easier, so we don't have congestion that suffocates communities. We need a partner in the government of Canada, and their record when it comes to infrastructure is very poor.
What do you have to say to US? Because now they're saying that all our NATO allies, they have to spend at least 2% of the GDP on the defense budget. Here we are, you're right, we have record deficit budgets, but in case we need to increase our spending in the defense from 19 billion to maybe 30 billion or 35 billion, where do you go?
Well, there's a good example, is that they're spending money left, right, and center, but in areas that the government actually needs to expend resources to get up to appropriate levels, they're not. And so you look at our Canadian forces, and because they're so underfunded, we have planes that can't go up, we've got submarines that can't go down. Justin Trudeau has continued to underfund the Canadian forces, and it's important to have that capacity as a country.
All right, last two questions. One is on one of the very important things, that is the affordable housing. We all understand the problem. What is your solution for that?
So all three levels of government need to chip in. We have an affordability crisis. I'd say there's also a supply crisis. We have more consumers than there's product on the market, and that creates an appreciation, a rapid appreciation in the marketplace. I'm working with Premier Ford and other GTA mayors to deal with the supply crisis, to try to get more product online. Right now, it could take sometimes 6-7 years to get a new subdivision online. Too much red tape in the system, and so certainly all levels of government need to look at where they slow down the ability to put product on the marketplace and reconcile that.
Yeah. Twice in recent times, 6 of your council members, they've sent us a press release and they've come on our channel Y on Y Media, and they've expressed concern of how things are happening in the City Hall right now. They say there are a lot of issues and they're going to make sure these things do not happen. Why are these 6 councillors sending us the signed letters and asking all these questions at the City Hall?
Well, it's my job to bring council together. And, for the most part during this term of council, we've done so. All 4 budgets passed unanimously. Our transit master plan passed unanimously. I look at the big picture. We brought council together in a way that we did not see in the previous council. Once in a while, there are issues of disagreement. We had an issue of disagreement on the previous CEO that had council divided. But I brought both sides together. I came and nominated Paul Morrison as our CEO, a candidate that united council, who has been by my side the last few years during the COVID pandemic. He was our director of bylaw enforcement, a former superintendent of the Hamilton Police. And I ask council members to always take a big breath and look what the best interest of the residents of Brampton are. And sometimes we can have ferocious, heated debates. That's part of the democratic process. But I'm very pleased that we've been able to bring council together, and I'm grateful that members of council are almost entirely all supporting my bid for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, I think, which speaks to their confidence in me as a leader to bring people together and get things done.
All the council members are supporting your leadership bid?
Almost every council member, I believe. We've got about 9 of them now that have volunteered. I'm hoping that we'll get everyone volunteering to help out because it's about what's in the best interest of Brampton and the best interest of Canada.
My last question, talking about support, I was just talking to a major newspaper in Quebec, and they asked me this question. They thought you had support of just one community. I won't name that, but they said that. But I said, no, Patrick had the support across the board. He had great support. Actually, he surprised his opponents when you were fighting the race for mayor in Brampton. But now I see some of your supporters, they've turned critics. This is your chance to tell them why they should support you in the race for Prime Minister.
So I will always fight for all Canadians. I will always fight for all communities. And that's my commitment. It's always been my commitment. Now, if one community says you can't support another community, I don't take ultimatums like that, but I will fight for every faith, for every community, for every cultural group unequivocally.
All right. Thank you so much, Mayor Brown, and we wish you all the best. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, but if you're interested in joining the Conservative Party, you can go to theconservative.ca or fighterwinnerleader.ca. That's my website, fighterleaderwinner.ca, and join me on a journey to build an inclusive Conservative Party where we fight for all Canadians. Doesn't matter who you love, where you're born, the color of your skin, what God you worship. I'm going to ensure that every Canadian has equal opportunity to succeed and chase their dreams.
Thank you so much, Mayor Brown, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. And this was all for tonight at our discussion on Y Media Political Sensex. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y, a South Asian Canadian channel.
And you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group, Y Media. Y Media. Y Media has newspaper, midweek, radio, South Asian Pulse.
Hi, I'm Amitabh Bachchan, and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
Hi, this is Amir Khan, and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
अब हर दिन सुने GTA का #1 रेडियो स्टेशन FM 91.9.
Television. You are watching Channel Y. Channel